Today, we're going to talk about having voice control of a dominant masculine presence.
Through the white thunderstorms, we ride on the back of our truckers in a fearless stride. Sons of gold, hearts made of fire, conquering lands, fueling our desire. Roaring engines and lightning in our eyes, united we stand. Strength won't compromise. From the east to the west, we sail and we roll. Beneath open skies, a promised land where our spirits arise. We battle the storms and tides of the sea. Now we've arrived in the land we're meant to be.
All right, welcome to the Dragonship. Once again, I am your host, Paul Bauer. Do be sure to like, subscribe, drop some comments there in the live chat. That helps us. That helps boost us in the algorithm. Plus, we like interacting with you guys. And don't be stingy with those super chats. You know what I'm talking about. All right, guys, joining me on the panel today. We'll start at the bottom. We've got AJ, the Viking detailer. He's working on his Inner Game July. What's going on, AJ?
Oh, not much. Just went back to night shift, so no more hiding out in undisclosed underground locations every other week. So I'm back in my house. Just gotta wake up early on Saturdays when it's my working Saturday.
Oh, waking up early. That sucks, man.
It is what it is. I'm here for the guys.
Huds, you're there for the guys, huh? That sounds fruity. But anyway, hey, Huds,
In the most hetero way.
yeah.
What's going on, Paul? I'm at my shore house right now, trying to have a little bit of a vacation. And of course, I picked the weekend when it is storming the whole time. So it's just been rain and cold weather.
You have a shore house?
Doesn't everybody?
It's where he parks the Dragonship.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I didn't know we were dealing with a top G over here. Look at this. Nuke shows up late. What's going on, Nuke? How are you doing, brother?
Good. I was eating breakfast and I was enjoying it so much that I let time slip. So
very well. Tarl, the Viking paradigm. What's going on, brother?
Chilling, man.
Just chilling. You know what? This we were talking off air, but today's topic, voice control. You have a lot of experience with this.
Well, I wouldn't say a lot of experience, but I have professional training, right? Like I said, my mom's a professional singer. She caught me one time singing Metallica and fucking it up, tearing my vocal cords, and was like, no, we got to sit down. I got to show you how to do this right. Otherwise, you're just going to hurt yourself.
Fair enough. So you probably have more experience than most of us. And then we have the God Amongst Men, who we are going to be talking about his book today. The guy who actually wrote this. What's going on, Thor? How are you feeling, man?
Hey, Skull, everybody. Living the dream, right? I love this topic because it's actually really important. You can reach so many people with the pacing of your voice, how you use your voice. Can't wait to get into it. Thanks, man. Thanks for hosting today and coming up with such a fantastic topic. We got some exciting things today.
Yeah, it was actually Laurent's idea because I was like, let's do a topic from Thor's book. And then he goes, why don't we talk about voice control? Because no one talks about it except for Thor. I was like, actually, that's a good idea. We can actually go through that. That's in chapter 7 of A Dominant Masculine Presence. And he does talk about body language and voice control of a dominant masculine presence. We're going to focus on the voice control part. And we're going to be talking about using our man voice today. Now, guys, I'm just going to go around the horn here. AJ, you've read the book, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
I got my copy right here.
Huds, you've read the book, right?
I actually have not. And Thor, I am so sorry about that.
Wow.
I have not gotten through the whole thing. So
oh my
apologies.
God. You are wrong, sir. Nuke, you've read the book, right?
yeah, I listened to it.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll accept that.
Yeah.
Tarl, have you read the book?
Yeah, I listened to it. I own a copy too. So
We've got some echo here. I wonder. Hold on a second. I think it's Huds. Nope. Oh yeah, it's Huds. It's definitely Huds. So hey, Huds, if you can, like, just toggle mute and stuff, because
I had it muted, and when you said that, but maybe it's this mic, and I can always swap it out.
yeah, I don't know. But if you just no, it's something else. Someone else has it. I'm hearing an echo.
Testing.
Somewhere there's an echo. Anyway, we'll get it figured out. But let's see. Thor, you obviously wrote the book, so that's good. So if you guys haven't read the book, you guys must read the book. It's definitely, it's on my multi-read list. It's that good. Now the first concept Thor brings up in this chapter on the subject is using your man voice. And he says you don't need to use it to shout down people because you just don't need to, right? Thor says that a dominant masculine man has absolute faith in his masculinity and rarely, if ever, demonstrates it by putting anyone else down or through domineering verbal commands. I'm going to throw this over to you, AJ. What's your take on this? Does a dominant masculine man need to shout people down and stand on soapboxes?
No. This goes back to, I believe, I forget if it's later in the book or more in the beginning of the book, where that's about command presence versus demand presence. A dominant masculine man just commands presence. Like, he doesn't have to sit there and get on his soapbox and preach to everybody, hey, look at me, I'm alpha male, listen to me because I've done all this stuff. No, he just does it. He is who he is. He's his mental port of origin.
Huds, what's your take on this?
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I've learned it in the professional world as well. The one who essentially speaks the least and speaks with the proper pacing ends up having like the most power. Like, when you think of certain meetings that you're having and everybody's just like going back and forth at each other, but nothing's actually getting done, and then you can literally just make one or two statements, but those statements are so powerful and everybody listens. Raising your voice it really is a sign of weakness, because it shows that you're scared to not get your point across and not be right. But when you're calm, cool, collected, it impacts a lot more.
All right. Nuke, what's your take on this? You're on mute.
I would say raising your voice is like a curse word, where the more you use it, the less power it has, the less weight it holds, right? You want, like when my dad would raise his voice, I knew something was wrong, and I knew I should probably run and report to him immediately, because he never raised his voice. He would only raise his voice when it was absolutely necessary, right? Or where it was a grave issue or error that someone had committed, or there was danger nearby. So the more sparingly you use your voice, right, the more people will respect, or your loud voice, the more people will respect it, because they know you're not some kind of guy that like loses his emotional control and just screams whenever's, anything comes up, right? So it's important to know that screaming on a soapbox does not make you alpha or make you people respect you more or something. That's just not how it works.
Yeah. Tarl, what are your thoughts on this?
I agree with Nuke's take on that a lot. It's one of those things where there are exceptions, right? But the rule is, right, you shouldn't be just yelling. See, the common beta male game is to take something that's useful and good and do it all the time, right? That's what simping is, right? Same thing with yelling and whatnot, right? I've had times where there was a guy I was trying to help in the freshman Discord, right? And he was going through some shit, and I was, telling him what he needed to hear, but then he's sitting there making excuses, right? So then I have to yell at him to override his own voice in his brain and snap him out of it. But that's rare. That's the exception, not the rule. The rule is those things like curse words, it loses power if you do it all the time. For it to maintain effectiveness, you need to do it rarely.
Fair. We were joined here live from Tokyo with my man Laurent. Laurent, we were talking about how in Thor's book he says that if you have a dominant masculine presence, you don't have to use your man voice to shout people down and talk over people and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on this?
Actually, and it's interesting you mentioned this because in Japan, the moment you yell, the moment you show anger, by definition, you lose face. So the whole game is about remaining calm at all times. And it is actually a very masculine quality to remain calm through difficult times, not losing one's temper, not losing one's face. And I believe that actually when people yell at me, I do two things. And this is something that I learned by accident. First, I slow down my cadence. And second thing, I almost whisper. I learned that with my children actually. The reason for this is if I speak softly, my children have to pay attention to what I say, and they cannot be angry, yell at me, and listening to me at the same time. So that's a very interesting trick that I just learned not too long ago. It works because they have to pay attention. And if they pay attention, they no longer focus on their anger. So try that. I think it works. But I believe that yelling in general doesn't work. Especially in the culture where I am in Japan, that yelling doesn't work. So it's very, very rare that I see people yelling and getting their way. This is not the Karenistan, like your land.
That actually reminds me of, and I'm going to show a clip from this later, but there's this guy in pro wrestling. You guys may have heard of him. His name is Jake the Snake Roberts. And he is really good at sort of changing his tonality and then bringing things down real low, almost like a whisper, because it draws you in when you do that. We're going to show that here in a little bit. Thor, I mean, obviously this is your book. What made you put this in the book?
Well, I often think that it's very overlooked, and that in today's social media environment, there's a lot of grandstanding that goes on. Look at me, look what I did, you know. And I think that the social media environment requires some of that because nobody knows anything about you. And so I thought it was important to remind men who want to go beyond alpha and beta and seek that dominant masculine presence. How do I do that? How do I convey that? A voice is a big part of it. Being able to use the silence, the pacing, the tone of your voice. You don't want to get caught into making points where you start to raise it way up like this. Those sort of things you'll see the gals do when they're in a social environment. The whispering, that was an excellent point because it draws people in. They want to listen closely. And if you don't always overtalk, people are interested in what you have to say. If you overtalk and grandstand any topic, people have had enough. It's like, he said too much. And they stop listening, they tune out. And on the side where you're interacting with men and women actually love a lower voice and they like that. I mean, we've all heard that women love the dirty talk. It's absolutely true. There's some quotes in my book about how women feel about that raspy, sexy, lower masculine voice that commands attention. And how do you get that? How can you practice it? Because not everybody naturally has that, and they develop habits. So I wanted to add that and couple it with some body language so that you could essentially use command presence to express your dominance, and even in a positive way when you're socially interacting. That's why I wrote that chapter.
Yeah, fair enough. One thing,
there are guys who have discovered that voice messaging a girl in the morning with your morning voice is much like a hack. I don't know if Huds, if you've had clients say this or you've seen it on social media, but some people say that always voice message women in the morning with something because your voice is raspier in the morning and it sounds tired. And girls have reported on social media that they really enjoy guys' morning voice. Just saying. So there is truth to this on social media.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that, but definitely using your voice, like voice notes, that hits a lot more.
Yeah, Paul, you're a very big proponent of that too.
Oh, huge voice messages or even video messages, because with a video message, you've got all of your body language plus your tonality and your voice, and they can see your facial expressions, and it's almost it's way better. I think it's that's the number one hack that most guys aren't doing.
Yeah, more layers of communication. That's the key thing. A lot of guys overlook those layers of communication that we give out, and you need to be stacking them correctly, and that's spot on.
Yeah. On the same vein of not talking over people, Thor says that domineering men like to grandstand to show up their perceived status in a group setting. Now, one thing that I added here is that I know this guy, and I like this guy, but in meetings, this guy will run his mouth to make it seem like he's doing all this work and doing so much. And he's basically saying a bunch of nonsense and gibberish that have nothing to do with the meeting's about. I wouldn't call that guy domineering, but I would definitely call that try hard. And I wouldn't say that's using your man voice effectively. What do you guys think about? Have you guys ever ran into that?
Constantly. It's absolutely, oh man. You deal with it because it's people. It doesn't matter if it's business or whatever. It's just people. And they'll just, like with these work meetings, it could be something that you could just accomplish pretty quickly in 10 minutes. But because it's set for an hour, people will talk around just to fill that entire time. And when you think about it, and I think we've all experienced it, not just with voice control, but like a selection of how much you need to say only what is necessary. And then things move along a hell of a lot better, and people respect you a heck of a lot more.
Huds, are you tapping on the desk to make your point?
I was.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm playing the piano.
Yeah. I can hear that, but have anybody else like experienced that where you just have someone who they think that they're being more important than they are by talking more, and really understanding that less is more of a dominant masculine trait?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I had a guy that ended up being hired on to reorganize the company that I was working for previously. This is over a decade ago now. But that was his thing, is that every meeting, he was the boss running the meeting, but he would sit there and word salad, talk about all the awesome shit we were going to do to fix stuff. But here's the thing. Half the shit he was talking about, he didn't know what he was talking about because he just got there. And all the recommendations that he did have was all stuff that I suggested, and he was only using half of them. So he's literally half-assing it and telling the crew, I'm half-assing it every meeting, but then he thinks that he's doing all this awesome shit and thinks he's winning the crew over. And it turned out like he hired a 30-year professional to replace me when I decided to quit. I gave my 2 weeks, and they ended up doing exactly what I'd been saying for months.
Interesting. What were you going to say, Nuke?
Have you guys ever been in a training where there's that guy that's always asking a whole bunch of questions, like unnecessary questions? He makes it longer than it has to be. He asks obvious questions, right? It's kind of like a form of brown nosing to try to trick the instructor to thinking that they're more knowledgeable or they care more. And then the test results or the results come out, and it turns out they're just as stupid as everyone else. They were just brown nosing the instructor to see if they could have that kind of like connection above everyone else.
Asking meaningless follow-up questions and whatnot too, or nonsensical, obvious follow-up questions, like stuff that no reasonable person even asking the question would want to ask, but they're obviously doing it to be manipulative and be like, hey, I'm interested, I'm paying attention, I swear. But then they're not paying attention.
I find that a lot of guys
way of describing it. I call it grandstanding. People will grandstand, and you can notice it. Once you notice it, it's pretty obvious that they're grandstanding. They want to add importance, but they really don't have any importance to add. The ones that really impact people are the ones that use those pregnant pauses with really relevant information, so people have to listen to catch what's going on. But that's not the norm. It seems as though that grandstanding becomes a competition if you've been around long enough.
You're on mute. You're on mute, Laurent, but you can. There you go. You're off mute. Go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, I've come across the other phenomenon, the other side of the phenomenon with, and I have a story about this where voice can express competence. People who don't speak much, don't do much, but all of a sudden the voice commands. So we were in the Grenadines, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we picked up a dude to go from one island to the next. It happens very often when you're sailing. So we picked up a dude. He came with, and he gave us a beer, and can you transport me over there? No problem. And the dude was sitting in the back of the boat, like minding his own business. And all of a sudden, like, we had a problem with the sail, and for some reason, the wind also picked up really fast, and we were surprised. And the dude stood up, and all of a sudden, with his voice, only with his voice, and we were all fairly experienced sailors, but only with his voice, he commanded authority. He commanded, you do this, you do that, you do this. It turned out to be, then we talked to him later, and it turned out to be that this guy was a competitive circumnavigator. So he'd been around the globe competitively a couple of times. And when he stood up and started talking, we obeyed. Because on the boat, as Newt knows, in the boat, like on the boat, you obey the captain or you obey the most competent. There's a natural hierarchy of competence. And his voice resonated competence. We felt calm. We did what he said. We were good. And when it probably happens to you as well in all situations, when somebody is really competent, it shows in the voice. And women pick up on this stuff. Like, they pick up on the congruence that guys have. Does it make sense?
Yes, I think it does. And going back to what Nuke was saying about the guys in the meetings that ask unnecessary questions, I also find that a lot of those guys don't really want to go back to work, and so they're just dragging on the meeting so that they don't actually have to go back to work too.
It's a strategy, I guess.
Well, it's the same thing with the guys standing around the water cooler. They'd rather sit there and talk like women than actually be getting stuff done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely the opposite of a dominant masculine presence. And speaking of, we are talking about Thor's book today, chapter 7, in a dominant masculine presence. Let me play a commercial for that real quick, and then we'll get back to the topic.
Ever feel like the world is trying to make you smaller? That the qualities that used to define you are now something to be ashamed of? It's not just you. For decades, society has been pushing men to fit into a mold that doesn't match who they are. But there's a way out. A path to reclaim what it means to be a man. A Dominant Masculine Presence by RP Thor is the guide you've been waiting for. In this book, you'll discover the 7 essential skills that every man needs to stand tall and take control. Learn how to project confidence, master your emotions, and communicate with authority. RP Thor takes you through real-life examples, sharing practical techniques to help you develop your own dominant masculine presence. It's time to stop feeling sidelined. Time to step up and lead. With a dominant masculine presence, you can become the man you were meant to be. Order a Dominant Masculine Presence now on Amazon or listen on Audible. Rediscover your strength. Reclaim your life.
Reclaim your life, guys. Hey, so one thing that I want to show is this clip, because, and we'll probably have to cut it in post. so that's one of the reasons why you guys need to join these lives, is so that you can watch this stuff, because sometimes we have to cut this out later. But Thor brings up dealing with children and adolescents. Laurent brought that up too, talking about speaking a little more softly with the kids. It forces them to listen. But Thor talks about in his book too, about how having a dominant masculine presence is very good at capturing children's attention. And when you're, explaining things to them, it really resonates with them better if you can have this dominant masculine presence. And I wanted to show this clip because that part of the chapter reminded me of this.
Fire and wind come from the sky, from the gods of the sky. But Crum is your god. Crum, and he lives in the earth. Once giants lived in the earth, Conan. And in the darkness of chaos, they fooled Crum. And they took from him the enigma of steel. Crum was angered, and the earth shook. And fire and wind struck down these giants, and they threw their bodies into the waters. But in their rage, the gods forgot the secret of steel and left it on the battlefield. And we who found it are just men. Not gods, not giants, just men. And the secret of steel has always carried with it a mystery. You must learn its riddle, Conan. You must learn its discipline. For no one in this world can you trust. Not men, not women, not beasts. This you can trust.
Kind of reminds me of when Wraith is on the panel, you know, guys. That was actually a clip, the documentary of Thor and his dad. So, but that's exactly what it reminded me of, and you can tell that actor really cultivated that dominant voice. He used a lot of pregnant pauses. He used a lot of soft-spoken language to really draw you in. That's kind of what we're talking about here, right? You guys
example.
You guys have all seen the documentary, right?
Yes, I've seen the documentary.
I mean, Thor, you probably, I mean, obviously you wrote the book, but you have children yourself. Did you use that type of tonality when, you know, giving lessons to your children?
I was pretty fortunate. You know, I'd worked in an all male industry where it was important that, you know, the dominant men got their points across, because in the industry that I worked in, it was very dangerous. I mean, you can see the scars on my hands from the electricity as a power lineman. So, you know, this was something that was second nature to me. But yeah, I raised 3 boys and a daughter. And yeah, it was easy to get your points across when you understood how to engage in conversation with the children. And it carries across into, you know, a transformational leadership style when you're presenting or lecturing. It really can be impactful once you understand how to use your voice, create that resonance, you know, move from topic to topic and create importance and gravity behind it. That's all part of projecting yourself out there and communicating. And women do really pick up on it. So do children. They're very good at sub-communication. And part of sub-communication is your voice. It's your timing. It's your intent. And then when the time comes and you need to raise it, it carries a lot more weight and charisma.
Yeah. Laurent, you mentioned your children too. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, Thor said it all. And it's true that actually children and women pick up on this. They pick up on the subtext, pick up on the congruence. So, and it's very important to remain calm, to respond to calm. Everybody does. Everybody does. Especially when everybody loses their shit. The ones who make money on the desk are the ones who keep calm through the storm.
Yeah, I will say that that's one of the things that was a struggle for me, honestly, is keeping my calm when talking to my kids and not losing my shit, because that's how my dad would lose his shit and just blow up and scream at my brother and I. And so that's how I did that a lot with my kids too. And over the years, my kids will probably tell you that I've gotten a lot better at that. I still have my points where they just, you know, I've just had enough of their shit. But it's been definitely a work in progress over the last few years not to do that. Did someone else want to say something on this?
The only thing, sorry, somebody else.
I was going to say on the topic, because I have a son as well, and right, every once in a while the kids want to challenge you, right? And the thing is I always remembered back to one of the most intimidating, the first most intimidating situation with my dad growing up was when he taught me about the 2x4 when I was 4. Right, he broke a 2x4 in front of me and said if I ever fucked up, that's what he'd do to my face. But that's beside the point. The second, and well, I'd say it's right up there. The other time that it was intimidating was when he was teaching me how to fight, and I was getting frustrated when I was about 13, and I was about to quit. And he could tell, right? So he just, because I wanted to hit him so bad, I wanted to fight him. right? Because I felt like I was being mistreated, but all he was doing was teaching me the fundamentals and correcting me correctly. But I didn't know at the time, so I'm fighting. I'm, all angsty. And he just leaned in real close and whispered in my ear, not like whispered, but like said real low in that guttural, like fatherly tone, "Do you want to hit me? Go ahead, hit me. See what happens." And that's all he said to me. And that's straight that and he was so calm and assertive with it that I remembered that. And I've done similar things, where I've told my son, this is the path you want to go down, right? I just start asking Socratic questions and I just do it in a low tone and just deliver it directly. And I just ask him. And then I'd be like, okay, you're mad. You want to hit me? Go for it and see what the results will be. Right. And he's done it before. He's wailed on my shins, kicking me over and over again. And what do? I don't fucking respond. I'm just like, see what happens? You can't do anything to me. Right. But because I'm in that low tone, calm state, that's that low, we want to get woo woo for a second here. That's that low vibrational state or I should say that calm vibrational state instead of the low vibrational state, which is where a lot of these people that start getting angsty and acting up, they are in that emotional mindset. They are functioning off emotion and they are not controlling their inner calm, right? You need to be able to, that's the universal message here, is that the tonality conveys your mindset. Right. Even if it's not true, you can fake this stuff as well. If you learn how to mimic the sound and tonality. So even if you're nervous as shit, you can still deliver things calm. Like when I've been backed into a corner before by people, right? I've been able to maintain that same calm, right? Because I'm just responding correctly to stress by controlling myself rather than giving into fight or flight. I hope that makes sense.
It does, actually. And it's a really important point because today with social media, we are being trained to listen to react, and we react with our voice and our emotions. We're listening to react instead of listening for understanding, which will put you in the mindset where you can actually use your dominant masculine voice, and the Socratic method of the Stoics is an excellent place to be when you're being questioned or you're being pressed, because it'll force them to think outside the box. You'll throw them off their grandstand game and you will have dominated the conversation to your advantage and shown leadership.
Yeah. Huds, did you want to add to this?
Well, it was essentially what Tara was just saying, which I thought was great. Like that lower vibrational energy. And the reason for doing so, like when somebody is completely losing it on you or they're emotional, when you meet them calm, cool, collected, then it's only a matter of time before they then get embarrassed and realize that they're way, way out of line. And it's absolutely fantastic for conflict resolution.
You're on mute there, Nuke.
So in back when I was in the Navy, when someone was having a bad day and there was a lot of yelling and screaming going on, if you were the one being yelled at, you kind of had to disassociate a little bit and be like, this is not personal. Like, this is not personal. Yeah, I messed up, but like, it does not, we're not in boot camp anymore. It doesn't warrant a response like this, right? So there's definitely something more going on than I messed up. And number two, we when we were like in our little work center or we're just working, everyone's doing paperwork or just minding their own business, and someone comes in screaming and yelling, we would just ignore them. And that's really important. When someone's losing their mind and screaming and yelling and looking for someone to give them that validation that, hey, I'm paying attention to you, that's where you don't want to be the guy getting yelled at for someone else's problem, right? So we just ignore them and then they storm back out again. And then later they have to face everyone after having an emotional outburst. And that's kind of embarrassing, right? And over time, people would start learning to have control because no one validated or no one like gave them the time of day with their yelling. So,
yeah. So let me get to these super chats here, and then we'll move on with how to actually develop this dominant voice control. We have two from Elena here. So we have Elena's Bar Fitness. Hello to the best masculine men. Fantastic to see Thor on. Appreciate your work, gentlemen. Thank you for that. Let me get the Odin horn here. And then Elena sent a $10 super chat. Teaching men how to be masculine and educating women how to be feminine, not combative, entitled, and delusional is essential for the well-being of our society. Let's make the world better. Let's make a better world for our kids. I couldn't agree more. I'll give her this one too. Elena's awesome. We have to next time we'll have to give a shame these horses. Guys, listen, if you guys send a $20 or better super chat, you get the bouncing titties. Just remember. So now we've been talking about why it's important to have a dominant voice control, but we haven't told you how yet. Now, one of our panel members who's off saving the world and becoming a part of history dropped us this video because he's someone who's really over the last few years worked on having more of a dominant, deeper voice for his own benefit. And he rolled out of bed this morning and made this video for us.
One of the ways that I deepened my voice and helped myself establish a more dominant masculine presence, like in Thor's book, was it wasn't just about stretching of the larynx, the vocal cords, and cadence and all that. It was about the habit. So what I did was whenever I was by myself, like at home alone, I would talk out loud to myself. And I would make it as deep and I would slow the cadence down as much as possible. And so instead of talking like this and being over here and over there and all that, I would talk to myself and I would say things like, red pillows are very, very nice. I prefer medium rare steak. And I would just do this for hours and hours and hours on end until eventually it became a habit. Now, I wouldn't speak this slowly or this deeply all the time, but the frequency at which I would do it would increase and increase because I had made it a habit by just doing it for hours and hours and hours, day after day after day, whenever I was home by myself. And so the end result of all of this is before I met Thor and read his book, I was very kind of all over the place, almost like a terrified hamster. And afterwards, I speak more like this. And not only did it change the way I speak, but it also changed the way I thought and acted. Because I speak like this now, it slows things down in my head so I can process things more thoroughly. I can still make decisions quickly. I've always been able to do that. But now it doesn't seem like I'm making decisions or reacting in a panicked way. I come across a lot more decisive and intentional.
One thing I'll add to that, and just to cement what he's saying there, is that anybody can develop this. And what he did was he practiced it for hours and hours every day until it became his natural speaking voice. It became a habit. That's how all of this happens. The way you speak now, the cadence that you speak now, whether it's very fast paced and high pitched or whatever, it's because you've allowed that to happen through your own habits and how you talk. If you just take a moment and focus on changing that and practicing a different way and making a new habit, this can become your new speaking voice. Tarl, you so tell us more about your mom coaching you on your voice.
Okay, so for the audience, a little bit of context. My mom is she was a naturally talented singer. Started singing like before she hit puberty and all that stuff, and has been a professional singer pretty much her whole life. She favored more styles like barbershop, whatnot, because it was like the family what they sang, and she used to teach that. And for the context of most people, barbershop requires a high level of knowledge about breath control, diaphragm control, and understanding skull resonance. Right, how your vocal cords vibrate and how the sound transfers through your skull, out your eye holes and your nose holes and all your ear holes, all that stuff. You have like 8 holes or something like that in your actual skull, and they all resonate differently depending on the vibration of your vocal cords. So this is one of the things that she knew. And one day she came, I was in my room, I had a basement room, I all set up with my awesome like 90s stereo system, big ass 15-inch fucking subwoofer speakers and all this shit. And I'm sitting there like yelling along with Metallica like a fucking moron, tearing my vocal cords and just laying there in bad posture like a fucking typical like 14-year-old teenage boy, right? Just being a fucking lout, right? And she came in, she's like, hold on, just stop the music, stop the music. She's just like, what are you doing? Like, I thought I taught you better than that. Sit up straight. Right. She's like, you're gonna tear your vocal cords if you do this. Like, let me show you how to do it right. And it came down to basic technique and posture. So sit up straight, shoulders back, chest up, and don't sing with your chest or your throat. You sing with your diaphragm. You sing with your gut. All these dumb motherfuckers out here saying, say it with your chest. That's how a fucking idiot says it. With your chest. This is me saying it with my chest. This is me saying it with my diaphragm. You see the difference? Just from that slight little bit of a change right there and that emphasis, I can change that. So that's what my mom more or less taught me. She just sat down for like 15 minutes and had me practice. And like Mike said, that practice is very important, right? And being able to even get feedback from people, right? So playing off of, or springboarding off of Mike's point as well, this is something I have also practiced in terms of my public speaking. I'm not going to say I'm a pro by any means. I'm still learning. But for over a year, like 2 years, I've been practicing on people in the Fresh and Fit Discord. I tell them all the time, thank you for being my guinea pigs, right? You're allowing me to practice my public speaking and get live feedback like a fucking audience at a comedy show. So if I'm messing up or being too long-winded, somebody can tell me to land the plane.
One thing that Thor talks about in his book, and I think we're going to get into this too, is how when you're trying to develop this, it's good to record yourself so you hear what you sound like. And no one likes the sound of their own voice. Nobody does, because what you hear yourself sound like is not how everyone else hears you sound like. So when you hear a recording of yourself, you almost always hate it, but it will still help you to develop this, because you'll notice the change. You'll notice the change when you hear it back.
Yeah, that was one of the things real quick. When I did my YouTube channel originally, like anybody that's followed me since then, I sounded way more nasally. I had issues with that, and I've practiced a lot of that stuff since I originally started my YouTube channel. Huds was there, like we collabed in the beginning, right? So Huds knows the quality's gone up and my voice has changed due to that practice. And even things like, I almost forgot about that, the nose, right? How you talk when you're with your nose. Like I have a Breathe Right strip on right now because that was one of the issues I realized I was having at the time, was that I had that impedance in my nose. So I couldn't breathe. And this was causing me to sound more nasally. Right. And it was making me sound more whiny than I actually was. That's another thing that a lot of people don't understand. Those little inclinations, little tonalities will alter how people perceive you, even if you're not aware of it. And like you said, Paul, real quick, I'll land the plane here, is that the reason why people don't like the sound of their own voice, like you said, is because that resonance in their vocal cords, they're not feeling it when they're listening to themselves. So it sounds wrong no matter what it sounds like. It's even if your voice sounds good on a recording, it will still sound wrong to you because you're not feeling the vibration in your neck and your skull while you're hearing your own voice.
So I talk a little bit about this in my book, exactly. And I put a technique in there to help you understand that resonance. And it's called the resonance mask technique when you're speaking. And you can use this in conjunction with ascending and descending scales of the vowels. But what essentially it is you would close your eyes when you're humming or you're using your voice, and you would imagine a sleep mask around your face, right? So with that, you understand that that's where all of your sinus cavities are. And you want to get to a point with your voice raising the tone up and down until you feel a vibration in that mask area, right behind your glasses, right behind your eyes, right in that nasal area. That's going to be the best resonance you have. There's another resonance too, which is down in your throat. We can get to that later and show you some exercises guys do, which is called throat singing, where you're using the vestibular vocal cords rather than the primary vocal cords to create a resonance from your diaphragm. But simply put, if you can understand where that resonance mask is when you speak and you can feel that slight vibration, you'd close your eyes and you'd start a hum, maybe somewhere down. Even if it sounds rough, go all the way down. Right there's mine. I could feel the vibration behind my eyes. Now I'm getting resonance in that sinus cavity. It's probably a great place where I can open up and start to speak. So that's just one technique that I threw in there. Does that make sense on how you might identify where that resonance is that Charles talking about? It's not the only one. When we get to the example of the throat singing, we'll play a little video from Dune where they're doing the Old Norse throat singing. They're lowering it into their diaphragm and that vestibular vocal cord. That's pretty low. A little more advanced technique, but it's a way to learn it.
Yeah, we're going to go through the mask resonance technique here in a little bit. Now, Thor, you talk about the need to start working on your pitch and tonality, make it more profound, make it more velvety and heavy, pace your sentences, keep them concise, use pauses to create gravity, anticipation and weight, and have purpose with your words always. What do you mean by purpose with your words?
A good way to do that is to put emphasis on certain words at the right time, much like I'm doing now. You can do this by taking a passage out of my book, say a paragraph, and reading it out loud in the method you're trying to practice and recording it on your phone. Listen back and critique yourself. And then when you want to put emphasis on something, you can either lower your voice or you can raise your voice up here. You can change the tonality or the volume. You can start to whisper and then write down what you like. Really, that's what's going to stick with you and create habits. It'll become a part of your voice, your personality. Now, if you don't like it, you can absolutely change it. If you have somebody you admire, you can go down the imitation route. And that actually is very effective too. Ask Mike Steele about imitations. They work really, really well. And he's got a brilliant voice for doing that. He's practiced it. And it's a huge tool for a man to use to position himself socially as well, is his voice and how he carries himself, his face, what he does with his face while he's speaking. That's important. We call that countenance. And you're going to need to look in the mirror, record yourself so that you can use smiles, you can use pauses, pursed lips. You can express emotion like this. And it's really important. Most people don't pick up on it initially, but they pick up on it subconsciously. So it's just a few of the techniques I'd recommend. I'm rushing through them, but what do you think?
I think that's good. When you talk about velvety and heavy, creating gravity, anticipation, weight, when I was reading that, it made me think about Jake the Snake Roberts, the legendary professional wrestler. He was a really good guy at what we call promos, right? Where that's where they're talking trash to their opponents. And he had the ability to really pull you in because of the way he would talk. He would change the tonality, speed it up a little bit, slow it down a little bit to draw you in. So let me play a clip from him. I think he's calling out Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in this one, but check this out.
It is because Ricky Steamboat can't. He's got one thing to think about when he steps into that ring, and that's me and the evil that this mind can come up with. You see, I was born a human, but I've turned into a beast. Not because of what I wanted, but because of what you've demanded. This is 1986, man. Good guys finish last, don't you know that? Ask them all down the line, ask them. Good guys will finish last. Why? Because they don't have that much to offer but a smile. I've got the smile, but there's no smile of any child that you've seen. It's the smile of a very hungry man. I'm a giver, but when I give, I take right back. I don't want your body, I want your soul. Your body, that's for Damien to play with. And I'm telling you, Steamboat, Tuesday night, he's going to get all he wants.
Damien was the name of his snake, if you guys didn't know that. He would
Excellent example.
attack with a snake. You guys don't like pro wrestling either. Like, how dare you? Like, this is amazing stuff.
Oh, I like it now because it has Logan Paul, and Logan Paul's cool. That's what the kids are into.
Is that what that's what the kids are into?
God damn it, Huds. Like, before John Cena, sure, pro wrestling was cool, but after John Cena, it went to shit.
Well, he's retiring now. So AJ, tell me what you've learned so far in this episode.
Maybe reiterate the mask that Thor was talking about. Kind of best way to describe this episode is like taking knowledge that I already had and actually like bringing it out. Because like I use a lot of that emphasis stuff when I'm talking like in beer clubs sometimes when guys are asking me for advice. If you have ever noticed, Paul, when I highly recommend something, I kind of bring up the pitch a little bit when I say highly. Have you ever noticed that?
I haven't, but now I will. Yes.
Yeah. So like I'll be sitting there in beer club and be like, I highly, highly recommend. Like I'll bring it up high and then bring it back down low when I'm trying to make my point on certain pieces of advice.
You know, honestly, that inflection of changing the pitch up and down, that's kind of important. An important skill for guys to learn in general. I'll get to you here in a second, Laurent. Guys need to learn that in general, because if you just have a monotone voice where you never change inflection and you always just stay right here and you just keep talking and you're boring as fuck. Like no one wants to listen to you. But if you can move your voice around a little bit up and down, that is a more entertaining sound to listen to. Laurent, you're on mute, but go ahead and unmute yourself and chime in here.
Speaking of pitch, there's one time where guys' voices raise, the pitch raises and the cadence rises a lot, is when we are nervous. And when are we nervous? Is when we approach a chick. I realized this the other day. I mean, when it's somebody I have no stake in the game, like for instance, talking to an elderly person or talking to a dude, my pitch doesn't go up. But when it's talking to somebody I'm attracted to, my pitch goes up. I go from the Barry White to Barry Gibbs, from deep voice into falsetto, and it doesn't work. Chick turns around and, I have a boyfriend. That's the classic standard answer. So
yeah,
that's the advice they pitch when they
you got to keep that masculine voice if you're going to keep their attention, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
So Thor skipped ahead a little bit to talk about the mask resonance technique, but I do have that listed here in my notes, and we can play his throat singing video, but I'll wait until he's back to bring that up because he can talk to that a little bit better. Oh, there he is. Hey,
sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. So we did talk a little bit about the mask resonance technique. Let's play your that throat singing video that you wanted to
sure. The throat singing video, I have to preface it a little bit.
Okay.
In the new movie Dune, the part 1, they revived some old singing techniques from tribal areas. The Old Norse would do this, the Mongolians would do this, and it's called throat singing, and it creates a back pressure in your diaphragm. It's how you can practice. Now, of course, when you start, it's going to sound funny, but you're creating this resonance, just not in that sinus cavity that I was talking about for your everyday speech, but you can go even further and get much lower when you create that resonance from your diaphragm, your stomach, your lungs into your vocal cords, and not your standard vocal cords. There's a little pair of cones called vestibular vocal cords. And when you can vibrate these, it's very, very low. And in the movie Dune, they did some chanting, and it's throat chanting in order to create this warlike atmosphere, because this is a very tribal thing, but it's an example, and you can learn how to do it relatively easily, and it will help you understand where all these resonances are occurring. I don't want to get too much more into that. Let's play the the clip of the chant, and it's pretty inspiring if you're, into this sort of thing, and realize that anybody could do it if you wanted to practice.
All right, here we go.
All right. That's probably good enough there. So that's just an example. There's lots of instructionals out there, but the voice is extremely low. The only processing added on that, once you determine and go and look, is just reverb. That's it. That's human voice. And when you hear the guy that actually sings it talk, you would never know. That's how powerful that your lung capacity, your diaphragm is. He's putting back pressure on your throat and those vocal cords to where the vestibular vocal cords start to rattle. And that will actually help you understand the tones that you can get. Because if you've never done it before, you really don't know where to put your vocal cords. And it will give you a lot more flexibility. And it's kind of fun to do. So I thought I'd throw it out there. Here's what you'd search for, throat, Mongolian throat singing, or tribal throat singing, or Viking throat singing. Or you could just look up how to sing like the Sardaukar war chants. So that was all brought from our own history and brought into this sci-fi universe just for effect, because it is quite an effect. To hear somebody do it live with no processing, you wouldn't think that a human vocal cords could do this, but they can. And it's pretty impressive. I mean, it's like having a didgeridoo in your own throat.
Yeah. This is one of those curious biological things a lot of people aren't aware of, because a lot of these, like what you'd call a pro beatboxer and whatnot, the people wonder, how does he make more than one sound at the same time? It's using those lower vocal cords that you're talking about, those lower vibrationals, which is why they can basically add their own bass to their beatboxing while they're doing a higher tone, right? So they can literally give their own, bass line while they're doing their beatboxing and stuff like that. And then this, even like you said, tribal origins. People, often attribute singing to be just a feminine thing, right? Human beings are very vocal creatures, and men do it in combat. We do this through breath control, right? The reason why why would you want to sing before battle? To build oxygen in the bloodstream, to oxygenate yourself and actually build yourself up into that posture, that hype, that energy, to where you're breathing in a consistent manner. Because if you run out on the battlefield and you're not breathing right, you're not controlling that oxygen flow to the bloodstream, you're going to gas out. The way that MMA fighters lose typically if they don't get KO'd, and usually what leads to them getting KO'd, is running out of oxygen in the bloodstream. And then you gas out and you can't bring up your guard fast enough. Boom, KO'd, right? That's the idea in combat, is it's all about breathing. And so singing is an extension of those sort of proper breathing techniques.
Yeah, and this will help you create that dominant masculine voice. It won't be your primary, but it'll give you so much flexibility and versatility that you never thought you knew, and breath control. If you've done this in a tribal group before, there is some kind of esoteric energy that definitely happens with vibration. Remember, vibration is what the basis of string theory, quantum theory. You could get into it, but it's pretty impressive when you can move your vocal cords around to get these vibrations. And that's what makes it dominant, and that's what makes it a masculine presence that you can project across space and time.
Yeah. We also in the military do a lot of singing to keep in cadence when we're marching in boot camp. We have lots of cadence songs. AJ, do you remember any of the cadence songs?
Hell no. I just remember we got good enough that at cadence and at marching that we attacked other divisions.
Nuke,
you would send out torpedoes.
Nuke, did you do you remember any of the cadence songs from boot camp marching?
I mean, I remember a couple of them, but we also in the ship we would sing sea shanties a lot. That was very fun. I think any guy, if you got a good friend group, you guys should get together and sing sea shanties. That will really help your voice with like singing. And you realize that was one of the most masculine activities back in the day, was singing sea shanties. You know, back in the, and a lot of the things they sing about, men were able to understand the premise of the song and change their voice to that, right? Like one thing I wanted to add to this discussion is that different situations require different tones of voice, right? Like when you sing a sea shanty about, what was it? The one, I forgot the name, but a sadder sea shanty, your voice has to be more like you're grieving and almost like you're about to cry, but you're holding in strong like a man, right? And then there's more sea shanties where more about exploration. You got to be loud and boisterous, and then there's ones where like soon may the wellerman come. You have to be more high spirited and change the tone of your voice because you're singing a fun song, right? So make sure that one of the things I wanted to add, especially when talking to women or talking to children, you may have to change the tone of your voice because you are trying to kind of mix that, hey, I'm trustworthy, you can talk to me, with, hey, I'm a masculine man, right? And I wanted to like kind of show you guys, since we touched on music, certain pieces in music will always start out in the high notes. I don't know if you guys can see it, high notes right here, like really higher notes, higher octaves, right? And that's just like an introduction to the song. They'll play a small piece of the theme, right? So when you first, like if I am walking and I approach a woman, I'll be like, hey, that's a very higher tone voice, right? But as you guys see, as the song goes on, we get lower and lower. You see this transition here. We go from a treble clef to a bass clef, meaning there's a passing chord where we're going from a higher octave in the song to a lower octave, and it may get more somber, it may get more powerful, right? So as you're talking to a woman, right, or having a speech, you can start off saying, hey, like a normal hello, right? But as you're talking to these people, whether it be a group of people, a woman or a friend or whatever, you kind of can slowly slip into a more serious tone. And that's, people can feel that, right? They see like, oh, this guy is adjusting his tone based on how long he's talking to me. And I like this. And I feel like he's not monotone. I feel like he understands that you don't approach people by yelling or having a loud voice. You kind of approach people in a lighthearted way. And then over time, you start talking to a woman, and then you realize like halfway the conversation, you can lower your voice. A girl could say something like, oh, well, I think you're very handsome. And you'd be like, oh, well, thank you. You see, I lowered my voice there. It kind of, now we're entering a different part of the interaction where we're like, it's more sexual, right? And that's just important to know. You don't want to be monotone. You want to be like a piece of music which introduces itself in a very, you see there's not a lot of notes here, right? It's just a couple notes. But as time goes on, it gets more complicated, and there's a stronger bass line, and there's more bass. So this is an interesting, it's maybe not as scientific as I think it is, but it's just something for you guys that play music and instruments should notice about, because our voices are an instrument, right? We can put our voices on the scale on a piano, right? I can match each one of your voices on the piano. So depending on where you are, you can manipulate that, using the techniques we discussed in order to convey a message, and not only a message, a dynamic message where you may say hello at the beginning of a speech, which is lighthearted and high pitched, but over time you can make it more somber and then finish on a high note. And usually when I do on my streams, I always finish on a low voice, like, thank you guys. This is very serious information. Take it and use it. And then you say goodbye. So
I love what Nuke just said, because I didn't quite get to it, but his illustration of the musical notes, it creates an emotional gravity or impact that cannot be underestimated when you're communicating, whether it's in a transformational leadership role, or it's in a relationship role with a woman, or when you just meet them and you're creating a rapport. To finish that rapport off with that kind of gravity or impact, lowering in particular, at the right times, is, if you see it, you can't unsee it. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Laurent, you want to add something?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Silver fork to Nuke. He was really cooking. Thank you. That was great information.
Silver fork. Okay,
I
thank
was
you.
gonna say, I think Nuke hit a point that not a lot of people realize. It's better to have dynamic and be a little bit, for lack of better terms, a little bit higher pitched than it is to be monotone. Because if you're monotone, you're being boring. The girl's just gonna
Your speech is a song, right? Just consider your communication with people over a period of time a song, right? Why do a lot of people tune out of podcasts or tune out of music or tune out of books or something like that? Because they get that monotone kills them, right? Like Death by PowerPoint, it's the same thing. You want to, comedians, right? Comedians are masters at this, right? Comedians will be like Dave Chappelle is a good master of this too. Like he'll say a joke about I don't know. What's his name? The footballer that the footballer just died. He killed his wife. O.J. Simpson, right? Like O.J. Simpson did this, but did he really do it? And you see how I kind of made it a sarcastic tone, and people were like, okay, like that draws people in, right? And our voice is art, and our voices do follow a pattern, right? We have what's called a circle of fifths, right? And we can put all our voices on a scale.
Put that back up again.
The circle of fifths.
Okay.
This is a tool for people that are learning how to play music, realizing that every single note has a relationship with another note on the scale, right? I, as a amateur pianist, use this so when I read music, I know what scale I'm using and how it relates to another scale. And if you see the relationship with everything, with every other note, right? So in a way, all our voices are connected and they're only a step away from being something else, right? It goes really deep. I'm really interested in music and stuff like that. So it's very interesting to see how people forget that your voice is an instrument, like literally an instrument. People match that, like, and every sound is on the scale, right? Like the school bell when we were kids, that most likely was like F sharp, right? That's a sound, right? And over time, you can train your mind to recognize different notes. It takes time, right? And that's how a lot of musicians are able to play by ear. They can listen to a song and play instantly, is because they know tones. You could feel tones, and that's how strong our minds are. How good we are at taking in and understanding tone, right? So tone is very powerful when you're with children, right? With your dog can understand tone, and your dog has a much more primitive brain than you. So imagine humans, we can understand tone a mile away, and that's very important. That's a tool we have to communication. If you use it wisely, you'll be golden.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to add before, was that even that tonality that you talked about, that up and then down, that's an emotional roller coaster that you need to maintain in a relationship, and also to make sure that the conversation doesn't go flatline monotone, because usually flatline monotone people, they're like fixated and they're trying to do something, right? That's why it comes off as sinister.
It could come off creepy too.
Exactly. It comes off creepy and sinister because it's not just because it's boring, but because it's just like, well, why are they acting? This is not normal. There's usually an up and down. And even when I'm encountering, say, a wild animal, like just the other day, I had my son out of my mom's for a visit, and we went down by the pond, and there was a family of Canadian geese, right? And the dad's right freaking out and like, muscling up towards us and all that. And I do the same thing that I always do when I meet a new animal. Doesn't matter if it's a pet dog, a cat, wild animal. I always start out with, like something a little bit more high pitched, something along the lines of, because even though they can't understand what you're saying, they can hear the tonality. And I'll start out with something like, oh, hey there, or, like something not too high pitched, but just something like kind of give subtle surprise, right? Like, oh, hey there. And then like when the dad's like being all like, oh, what are you going to, protecting the babies? I'll just be like, I'll lower my tone immediately then and be like, you're all right.
Hey.
And then just keep moving. Yeah. No. I don't even correct them. I just say, you're all right. And I just keep it pushing. Right now, if I was getting attacked, that's when I, as soon as they were breaching that like personal space, that's when you'd be like, hey, and immediately, because you showed that you're defending your personal space and you weren't encroaching on theirs. And that's a great way of enforcing a boundary. And of course, if it's an angry parent, they're still going to try to fuck you up. But the idea is that I'm still far enough away where I'm not threatening, and I give that up and down tonality to show that there's no attack. Right.
Say, like,
and then I keep moving.
Where are you going?
Can I add to that real quick? Because there's the pitfall.
I just want to ask Tarl, where is he going where he's getting in fights with these dads and shit? I've never
that was a Canadian goose with a family of babies out of my mom's house.
About the
Cobra chickens.
But this goes to Nuke's point that these sort of communication tonalities are universal, not just with men, women, and children, but also with animals.
Okay. Yeah, Thor, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, just that when you're speaking and you're using your dominant masculine presence voice, you're using your man voice, there's some pitfalls that you can enter into, particularly if you've ever grandstanded before, is you want to try to avoid when you're speaking is the overuse of certain fillers. Do you guys understand what I mean by fillers?
Yes.
Right?
I'm guilty
When
of
somebody
it.
says, "Oh, yes."
you know what I mean?
Like,
you know what I mean?
Let
Yeah,
me explain to you this particular principle of fillers, right? You notice how I'm using this right with the question mark all the time? It's actually a really weak form of language where I'm questioning myself and trying to get confirmation from you. It's not the only one. There's also a lot of guys that need to fill the time to think about what to say. So you want to slow yourself down so you don't do this. Another one you'll see all the time is, and you can watch this on social media anytime there's a panel show, is, well, you know. So I was thinking about this the other day, you know, and it was like I was sitting there, you know. And so while I was thinking, you know, I said, you know, I should call Paul, right? So
I feel called out, right?
No, not at all. This happens to all of us. It happens to all of us in any conversation. These are the pitfalls that will detract from projecting your dominant masculine voice. And you'll see a lot of grandstanders do this to fill time to think of what to say next because they're not 100% sure of the subject matter or even have anything, but they know they want to talk. Pay attention to this next time you watch social media, particularly on some of these panel shows. And I understand that, but it is something that can become a habit with people when they're doing one-on-one. And since I've interviewed a lot of apprentices and guys in very serious interviews that are important, that is detracting, and it detracts from their ability to communicate that command presence. So I just wanted to mention there are pitfalls. Watch out for them.
I do it so much on my show, and I really notice it when I go back to edit clips because I edit out all my fillers, and I'm like, Jesus fuck, Paul, why are you doing this so much?
It's tough.
We don't
It's
even
such a
know
bad
it sometimes.
habit. Yeah,
It's
it's
not
such a
easy.
bad habit.
I know all my fillers. I know exactly what I say, and man, it's hard to catch yourself because you're like just talking. It's very difficult, but it's definitely worth it if you can stop doing that. But it's very difficult. Yeah.
And that's where recording really helps you. Pick a paragraph, do it. You'll see you actually add fillers when you are reading a paragraph. For some strange reason, our minds work that way. So these are some of the techniques that you can use to actually get ahead.
You actually bring up a good point there, both Thor and Paul. Because I just did my interview for my promotion to become a lead at work, and I used techniques that I learned in the Navy when I was interviewing for reactor operator, shutdown reactor operator, and ship's board. And it's good for anyone that's going through an interview process, whether it's for a promotion or for interview. When you're getting interviewed and you don't understand the question right away, or you want to get a little bit more time with the question, always bring a glass of water with you or something to drink out of, and repeat back the question slowly. And that lets your mind sit there and think, so you're not having to rush for those filler words.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up too, speed, right? When introducing yourself, going back to the music, right? A lot of the most powerful songs in history start out very slow, like as an introduction, right? Like Iron Man. Bang, you know, that's a very powerful introduction. It has a higher pitch. It also has a bass, but it's mostly high pitched and slow. And then you get into the melody, which is very, recognizable. But that melody, that those first 8 measures are supposed to let everyone know this is that song that you like. This is that song, so whatever you're doing, drop what you're doing and listen to the song. Like if you are talking to your friends, you're at a punk show or you're watching a movie, that something important or something big is going to happen because of those tones used in the beginning, right? They aren't necessarily bass tones, but they're slow enough to get people to know, hey, this is that song, right? And you notice that in a lot of our favorite songs, it's worth studying the structure of those songs and why we like them, because they keep people, we can mimic our tonality and with a conversation or a speech or just gaming a woman or whatever, or talking to our children. And you'll see that, again, those parallels between the songs we enjoy and the way we talk to people, our voices can become a song. Our conversations are songs. So you start out saying, hey, little nuke, I didn't like that thing you did. You see how I'm nice and slow. And then over time, you know, I raise my voice like, hey man, don't worry about it. Next time, don't do it. But if you do it again, I'm going to be very mad. You see, and that's a song. You created a song for a child to understand that, yes, you're not that mad, but you gave him that evil kind of like, but don't do it again. Because if you do, we're going to have a problem. Got it? Okay.
Don't
And then you
make me
end
use
on
my man voice.
yeah, exactly. And same thing with everything in life. Like you speed, the speed at which you talk. I have this problem where I have a lot of incoming thoughts in my head. AJ, you probably deal with this too because you're a former reactor operator. You got to think fast. So we kind of like think faster than we talk. So sometimes we just like blah 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 blah, blah and then we just like trail off and we have to like start again our thought. I do that a lot too. So it's important to like slow down and just say what you're gonna say. And that pause, the most important part of music is like pauses, because pauses defines the music, right? So a pause here and there, will masterfully done, is going to create more weight. Like, does anyone remember when your dad or someone was mad at you and then there was that pause after they said something? They were waiting for you to, like, they didn't give you time to respond. They just said, do you understand how that makes me feel when you do that? And they just look at you and you just expect them to keep talking, but they just look at you. That hurt more than the actual words because they're just so silent, and that silent hurts more. So yeah, I would say music, our conversations, our speech is a song, and just treat it as such.
All right.
Yeah, it's those tones are universal, right? Going back to that concept you're talking about music, the 4 chords of power. If anybody's seen that video, right? Almost all these pop songs have the same 4 chords. It's just done differently. And it's because human beings tune in to those, why is pop music so popular? It's garbage. It's like, no, it's got the same 4 chords that resonate in our skulls and our heads, right? And this is a pattern that human brains like.
Yeah. I think that's a good ending thought. Let's go ahead and go around the horn here and see what everyone's working on and get final thoughts. We'll start with you, Laurent, down at the bottom. What are you showing us there?
What I was showing was to echo what Nuke was saying again. Silver Fortune Nuke is cooking tonight.
Thank you.
So there's this guy Jonathan Altfeld. When I listened to Thor's book again a couple of months ago, I went back to Jonathan Altfeld. He was talking about state chaining. For instance, our voice conveys emotion, it conveys anger, conveys impatience, conveys curiosity. And he was saying that it's very difficult to come from anger into curiosity. You have to use different state. Like, for instance, from anger, you can come to impatience. From impatience, you can come to patience. And then from patience, you can be interesting. So by changing the cadence, just by changing the tone of our voice, we can, and this is useful, for instance, in customer support centers, or it's useful in negotiations, or it's useful in conflict with a spouse or someone we don't even know. So I thought that was very interesting, the idea of using the voice. And for instance, one thing that is interesting is like in cartoons, animes. I mean, why do they use those A-listed like Will Smith? And why do they use all those super expensive actors when they could use B-listed actors? It's because these people train with their voice. They're trained to convey emotions. Now, on a different note, what we've been working on a product with Rand Fowler about approach anxiety. See, when we were talking earlier, when you approach someone, your pitch rises because you're nervous. So the thing that we're working on is approach, escape the friend zone, and perform. These are all the subconscious fears that we have before all the limiting beliefs and all the internal blocks. So this is a fantastic product that comes not as a substitute for game, but as a complement. It doesn't teach you how to box like Mike Tyson, but it turns you into a fearless warrior who's not afraid of stepping into the ring. Although stepping into the ring with Mike might be a bit more complicated.
All right.
That was it.
All right. Good stuff, Laurent. Nuke.
Thank you.
Final thoughts and where can people find you?
Final thoughts is in terms of tone. Again, your voice is a song. It's your conversations are songs. Your voice is an instrument. Study why you like certain songs, and you'll realize that, hey, what if I made a conversation like that to people? What if I sounded like my favorite song to people? It's a beautiful thing to say, but it actually is pretty scientific if you think about it. And then guys, I'll put the link tree in the chat. Show tomorrow at 9 p.m. Central, How Doomers Are Created. And thanks for having me on. Thank you.
Yeah. Huds, final thoughts, and where can people find you?
Absolutely. So final thoughts on this. I mean, it really is fascinating. And when you pay attention to I mean, the way that you put it, our voice is a song. When you pay attention to that, like think of like some of the best narrators that we have in history. Like think why every single time you hear Morgan Freeman talk, you're captivated.
Or Samuel Jackson.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that pacing, the slowing down, the bringing things down, the bringing them up when something is really important. The best way to do it, as we kind of spoke about, is taking different paragraphs, taking different things and reading it and recording it, and then looking at how you're doing it. And that really can change everything. You can say the same thing, but when you say it in a different way, it's going to have a wildly different result. So it's definitely something to look into. And this was an absolutely fantastic show. The best place to find me is on my Instagram, right down there at the Hudsman. We had a really great meeting this week between my men's group and the Dragons, where we came together, and it just was so much fun. And I can't wait to do more of these collaborative type things between the different men's groups. So definitely be on the lookout for that.
All right. AJ, final thoughts, and what you got going on?
It's a great topic. I think it's one that we don't speak about a lot, and I'm kind of using it right now because I'm still waking up, working night shift. Find me on Instagram lately with the Intergame July stuff. I've been sharing my own wins and as well as other guys who are participating in it. You can find me on IG at AJMK6R20, and hopefully there you'll see all the other guys and their stories about them doing Intergame July. I should be starting Paul's course. I've been kind of neglecting that. I apologize, my friend.
How dare you, sir? That's all right. And Intergame July, just shout out to MLD. That's his baby. Tarl, final thoughts, brother.
Final thoughts. The thing I think guys should take away from this is that, Fresh and Fit on the after hours, they bring light to the fact that, the women always say, it's not what you say, it's how you said it. Right. But the thing is that at the end of the day, it not only matters what you say, but how you say it. Both do matter in terms of communication. And if you actually want results with other human beings, regardless of whether it's a personal relationship, a business relationship, or even just being on good terms with strangers, what you say and how you say it do matter. And that includes the shut the fuck up game part too. Less is always more. And what you say does matter in all regards. And that's lack of self-awareness that most people have today is why they go off on the internet and think they're safe doing a bunch of bullshit. And all they're doing is running their mouth. And as Thor said, grandstanding, right? Don't be a grandstander.
All right. And where can people find you? Oh, you're on mute now all of a sudden.
There, I post a link in chat. Follow my YouTube. I'm trying to grow my YouTube. See, this has been my big weakness. I'm never big on self-promotion. I'm just like, hey, yo, this is the truth. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. Got to promote yourself in this business, bro. Thor.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody in the chat. It's been real active. This is an important topic. The guys all made incredible points that, I couldn't do it all by myself. So I appreciate everybody that's a Drakkar here, all of the folks in the chat. They understand. You can find me at becomedurable.com. And of course, on my book, I'm going to close you guys for me out with a quote that I put in here from a famous author, Alexandra Martin. Here's the quote that she put that I captured. She was talking about a man that she'd met. The man had one of those dark, deep voices, the kind that made men listen and women shed their clothing. Alexandra Martin. So she's telling the truth. That's how it works. That's how powerful it can be to have a dominant masculine presence and be able to project it with your body language and with your voice, regardless of the role that you're in, whether you're doing your transformational leadership thing or you're in the relationship, or you're just currently conversing with a person in order to enjoy that part of the day and possibly develop some kind of a friendship or acquaintance. So thanks for listening today, guys. Appreciate you all. Thanks you, the Dragons, for all of your support. And if you want more, you can find more here. Amazon.
All right. Thank you so much, Laura. Your book really is a gem, man, and that's why I was happy to do a topic based on your book today. Guys, one thing that I think the big takeaway here that I want to give to you is, if you don't like the sound of your voice, I know a few guys that I've met through coaching and just in this space, they hate the sound of their voice. They hate how, like, maybe they're nasally, maybe they're too monotone. You can fix that shit. It just takes a little bit of effort and work, right? So check out Thor's book. We'll drop a link to that. It's in the description too. I have a link to it to Amazon in the description. He also has a link to get a free chapter with a promo code. So check that out. That's all in the description. Other than that, for me, tune into the podcast on Monday. We're going to be marrying two of my favorite subjects, woo-woo and red pill. I found a post that someone did on the Married Red Pill forum several years ago where they're talking about Think and Grow Rich, which is actually a law of attraction book, if you guys did not know. And I was like, this is fascinating that it's actually in a red pill forum. So we're going to talk about it. It's on the sexual transmutation of energy, which really goes back to the NoFap movement, which I think is fucking funny as hell. And so I'll probably be making fun of most of it, but still, it's going to be a fun topic. Other than that, we'll close out with a commercial for my fitness course. And otherwise, we'll see you guys next week on the Dragonship.
Tired of complicated diets and time-consuming workouts? Does your busy schedule leave no room for the gym? You're not alone. Thousands of men struggle with the same problem. The frustration of not seeing results can be overwhelming. But what if I told you there's an easier way? Introducing the Basic Diet and Fitness Mini Course, your no-nonsense guide to getting fit. Learn the only 4 exercises you need and master the secret of effortless weight loss with the calories in, calories out method. It's time to break free from the cycle of failure. Start your journey to a healthier, stronger you today. Sign up for the Basic Diet and Fitness Mini Course now, because every man deserves to feel confident and fit. Transform your life, one simple step at a time.
Visit fit.comeonmanpod.com and sign up today. No more excuses.